doesn't solve the crisis. It just shifts you to a higher debt load. Make better decisions by halting repetitive debt cycles.
Sticking. So the first one, you'll have about 120 seconds to vote. Once the vote is over, then Marcus will go over where the vote ended. You should be voting now. What you're currently doing, because we want to be able to get the real thing that you would do in this particular scenario. Yes, ma'am? I can't hear you. Can't go back. Okay, we still need some people to vote. Otherwise, we're going to get a skewed result. More. 10 out of 34 have voted. If you're online, you need to go ahead and vote. You've got about 30 seconds left. About 10 seconds left for voting.
Payment. On average, people have about $3,000 in cash but owe $12,000 in debt, with a credit score hovering around 679. This means most are carrying The group chose option B, to pay an extra $150 toward the balance, with 80% in favor and 20% sticking with just the minimum payment. On average, folks are carrying about $12,400 in debt with just over $3,000 in cash and a credit score sitting near 679.
Okay, you guys ready?
The group clearly chose to pay an extra.
You guys ready for the next scenario? Okay, we're going to start the voting after Naomi tells us what the next setup is.
The story of Elisha and the widow's oil in 2 Kings 4:17 contrasts the bondage of a lifestyle-driven debt with the true freedom found in faithful stewardship. A destitute widow faced losing her sons to the creditor because of her late husband's unpaid debts, possessing only a small jar of oil. Elisha taught her how to manage what was in her hand. Although she said that she had little, he taught her the law of multiplication through discipline.
Next vote. spend it, pay off debt. Got about a little over 60 seconds left. Anybody who wants to vote should be voting now. One additional vote. Come on online. About 20 more seconds.
The group overwhelmingly chose to put the full bonus toward debt payoff, with 92% voting yes and only 8% wanting to spend it on electronics, clothes, or entertainment. On average, attendees carry about $12,100 in debt against $3,000 in cash, with a credit score hovering near 685. This decision means choosing to tackle debt head-on instead of lifestyle upgrades. Imagine carrying a backpack filled with bricks. The debt is those bricks, and the bonus is a chance to remove several at once, lightening your load for good. Ask yourself, how much freedom could come from prioritizing debt over temporary pleasures, just as Proverbs advises wise stewardship?
So, based on the lessons that we've learned over the
The group overwhelmingly
couple of weeks, we've really kind of
The
talked.
group overwhelmingly chose to put the full bonus toward paying off debt,
Okay,
with
Marcus is
92%
testing
in
me.
favor and just 8%.
Okay, Marcus, are you done? Okay. So basically, over the last couple of weeks, we've kind of talked about the importance of building your spending plan. We talked about that spending plans aren't static, which means that as you go through each month, you should be making adjustments on your spending plan based on your debt load. So if you're paying off debts, then theoretically speaking, your spending plan should be changing based on the debt that you're paying. If you're not checking your spending plans and debt plans on a monthly basis, you won't really know where your money is going, and you're no longer managing your money. Your money is managing you. So the thing that you're supposed to be doing for the next 30 days or so is chewing up your spending plan by doing a spending journal. What the spending journal does is it lets you know exactly what you're spending. Because remember, when you make the spending plan is really listing all of your fixed things that you're paying, but it also lists those discretionary things. So when you go to the gas station and you buy a bag of potato chips, you should be writing that in your spending plan. It's about literally accounting for every single dollar, every single penny that you're spending. One of the things that we talked about over the last 2 weeks is that if you don't know where your money is going, what's the answer to that? If you don't know where your money is going, can't hear you. Yeah, you're literally throwing it away. And it's important that we learn these lessons. These lessons stick. It takes about 21 days to form a habit. So as you're going through your spending journal, it's really going to get you to the point of when you get out of the first month into your second month, you'll really start to think about, do I need to spend that, or do I need to bring down my debt? So we're going to do one more vote, and then I am going to, since we're having a little bit of technical issue, I am going to go ahead and, I'm going to do one more, and then we're going to go ahead into the actual teaching. Okay, we've got about 45 seconds left. Okay, we've got about 15 seconds left. We've got 12 votes in out of 34. Yeah, I think so. Well, the vote is over. Let's see if Marcus can speak without speaking twice.
The group chose to buy a reliable used car for $4,000 in cash, with 2/3 of the room agreeing. 17% wanted to finance a new car, and another 17% leaned toward financing a used car at a high 12% interest rate. Practically, this means avoiding debt that's well above the average $12,000 most people carry and not adding high interest payments on top. Putting this in perspective, financing even a used car at 12% interest can double the cost of the car over a few years. In light of Proverbs, which warns against surety for strangers, how might paying cash here protect your financial peace?
So everybody understands when you're buying a car,
The group
the interest rate is the most important thing that we need to be mindful of.
The group
right?
chose to buy a reliable used car outright for $4,000, with 2/3 favoring this cash purchase. Only about a third leaned towards financing, either a new car or a used one at 12% interest. That means the average participant is sitting on just under $1,500 in cash and over $12,000 in debt, with a credit score near 700. Opting to pay cash avoids adding to that debt spiral and the crushing cost of interest. To put it plainly, financing a car at 12% is like throwing away over $700 a year just for the bank's ride. Reflect on this. How might living within your means free you from the long-term weight of debt, as Proverbs advises?
Are you finished, Marcus? He's testing me today. Stefan is on the back end trying to make sure whatever's going on gets fixed. But basically, when we talk about an interest rate, especially on a used vehicle, you want to make sure that that interest rate is relatively low. Otherwise, exactly like Marcus said, if you extend that term out, even on a $4,000 loan, you're talking about increasing the amount of the car from either double, 1.5, So you can end up spending for a $4,000 car, you can end up spending $6,000, you can end up spending $8,000 for the same car. And then if you've done the Kelley Blue Book and you're right at what that vehicle is worth, now you're working with a negative equity on that vehicle. When we've already talked about, as soon as you've driven it off the lot, it's losing its appreciation because it is a depreciating asset. The good thing, though, about buying a used car versus buying a new car is like what we talked about last week. If you buy a used vehicle that is at least 3 years old, you've already dealt with the depreciation on that particular vehicle. But the key now when you buy a used vehicle is to make sure that that interest rate is not going to kill you. Definitely never go with a subprime because that's the kind of pay at the lot sort of thing. And if you aren't careful with the subprime, you can literally end up losing a car after you've paid into it because the interest on that car is killing you. Everybody understand what that means? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go to into the actual teaching. So, what I'd like to talk about in this particular slide is understanding your credit score. So when we talk about your credit score, when you're looking at this diagram here, it's comprised of 30%, 35%, 10%, 10%, and 15%. So if your payment history is important, an important component of your credit score, you need to make sure that you're paying your bills on time, because one payment on a high credit score can literally bring it down by 100 points. The next thing is the amounts that you owe. So when Valinda was up here talking about multiple credit cards, when we think about credit cards, they give you a limit that you have on that particular credit card. But what happens when you max out all of your credit cards? That's the 30% that's going to affect you, because it's showing that you are using more of the credit than you should in order for you to have a balance. Most people say that you should keep it somewhere around 30%, but I don't think you should keep it at 30%. I think you should be more like 10% of the debt load, because you never know what's going to happen throughout the course of the month or throughout the course of the year. And if you're carrying too much debt and you don't have the money to pay off that debt, now you're dealing again with your payment history. And you don't want your payment history to be messed up because you've got so much debt on your credit cards. Minimum payments aren't really a good option. So you want to make sure that you keep your debt load down. The next thing is the length of your credit history. So say, for instance, you've got a credit card that you opened 20 years ago, and you decide, oh, I want to go ahead and close it because I haven't used it in 20 years. That may or may not be a good situation for you to close that credit card, because remember, they want to look at how long you've had some credit history. So if you only have one credit card and you close it, it's almost like you are a brand new person in the credit history because there's no credit history. So be careful about closing credit cards, especially if you have one or two. You want to look at how long that credit card has been in your possession before you decide to close it. Any questions about that? Okay. The next thing is new credit. That means that if you're inquiring about getting a signature loan or another credit card, if you ask for too many credit cards or loans at the same time, so say for instance, you go to Chase and Wells Fargo and 3 or 4 other places and you're trying to get credit, when you get to the point of where you've asked more than 2 people to open up a line of credit for you, then it's going to signal that you have a problem And so it will flag your credit score and it will drive that credit score down. The next thing is what we've already kind of talked about, the mix that you have with your credit. So if you've got credit cards and loans, you want to make sure that you manage those well. Because if you're top heavy on the credit cards and then you're not able to pay your personal loans, then that's going to signal as well another credit card issue. So the impacts, like we've already talked about, is they go through what's called the trust test. They're going to test whether or not you can be trusted to pay your bills on time. The next thing is they're going to see if you are maxed out. If so, that's a penalty. The loyalty thing is, again, the length of the card that you've had. And then the desperation alert is when you try to get too much credit at the same time. So how do you protect yourself from your credit score being here, going down to here? That's the diversity proof. You want to safely manage your credit, both credit cards and loans, so that when they look at your credit profile, they know that you can manage any amount of credit, whether it's on a credit card or whether it's on a loan. So, the credit score is the scorecard. Debt is the game. You can't build a winning score while using the opponent's playbook. Do you understand what that means? Can somebody in the audience tell me what that means? Renissa?
Essentially, to me, that's playing their game, which they're in the business of making money at my expense.
Exactly. So like we've talked about before, if you understand the system and you know how to navigate the system, you can successfully use credit to your advantage. You know you've got a 30-day cycle. So if you're going to use a credit card, like what we talked about 2 weeks ago, is make sure you've got the money to pay it when the bill is due. If you've got the money to pay it when the bill is due, then you have successfully used their money, and now it's back in your court, and you're not giving up your power to the credit card companies. Same thing with loans. My sister talked about, getting a car loan. When you get a car loan, you don't really want it to go for the amount of time that you've gotten that loan for. The only reason you go ahead and get it for 3 or 4 years is you want a safety net, but you want to actively try to get those payments made so that you go ahead and release the debt before that 3 or 4 years is up. That's a big boost for your credit score if you can prove, yeah, I got a 4-year loan, but I paid it in 2 years, or I paid it in a year and a half. So it's really about being very responsible about your credit. The other thing that some people say is, well, if I don't have credit, then I'm going to look good when I go to buy a house. Well, that's not true. The unfortunate thing about our society is that they want to be able to see how well you can manage, especially when you're talking about a mortgage. So even if you don't like credit cards, at least have 1 or 2 credit cards and use them very sparingly. So you may use them once a quarter, pay it off as soon as you get the bill, so that you can actually prove a track record with using the credit card and paying the credit card off. I also say, you might want to do a personal loan for $1,000. You may have that $1,000 in the bank, but you want to be able to still prove that you have the ability to manage credit. Does that make sense? Now, this is the big battle. So I think this was also hit on. We have to first stop the bleeding. Freeze all new borrowing, no more credit cards, stop spending. Especially if you have an overabundance of debt, you need to stop. Then the next thing that you need to do is you need to list all of your debts on that debt plan. If you don't list all of them and you leave some of them off, you're going to forget to pay them. So list everything. It's not a judgment call. It's literally putting it in your face so that you know exactly what it is that you're dealing with. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to look at your spending plan. You want to determine whether or not you have any wiggle room within that spending plan to transition the dollars from a spending plan to paying off the debt. And what do I mean by that? Well, you've got some things on your spending plan and your joy plan that maybe you need to reduce those things. Maybe you need not go to lunch every day with your coworkers. Maybe you only need to do it twice a week so that you can take that additional money and start to pay off your debt. Because the reality is you can't dig yourself out of a hole while you're still holding the shovel. And you cannot defeat the enemy if you are afraid to look at what you need to measure, and that's your debts. The strategies, it's math. And math, like we talked about last week, math is absolute. You can't make the numbers anything other than what they are. So how are we going to conquer debt? We briefly talked about this last week. There are 3 methods to conquer debt. The first route is built on hard, cold math. That's the debt avalanche. That's the one where you list your debts from the highest interest rate down to the lowest. You put minimum payments on everything other than the highest interest rate. And you go ahead and you knock out that highest interest rate, then you go to the next one. The next one is the snowball. That's more a psychological thing. It's quick wins. That's where you literally list your smallest dollar amount that you owe down to the largest dollar that you owe. And you take whatever available dollars that you have and you start knocking out those low credit card bills. This makes you feel good because if you're carrying a lot of debt, you want to at least feel like you've made some sort of progress. Is it the best method? It depends on where you are in your debt journey. The last one is what we kind of talked about last week, where we talked about the debt cash flow optimizer. I tend to like this one. It's a hybrid where you look at both things. You also look at your spending plan and determine how much am I giving towards debt on one credit card. If you're paying $300 or $400 a month on one credit card, maybe that's the one you need to take care of because it's going to free up that $300 or $400 for you to be able to either use the snowball or the avalanche to start taking care of some of the other debts that you may have. So it's not about choosing a single route. It's really about using all 3 of them to your advantage to wipe out your debt. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
So you said with the avalanche, you list your debts from highest to lowest,
Yes, ma'am.
pay more on the higher, and just pay the minimum on the lowest.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the second one was the snowball.
Yes, ma'am.
Snowball is the opposite. You list them from the lowest to the highest. So for the hybrid, what's the rhythm?
Okay, so with the hybrid, what you want to be able to do is you want to still list your debts on your debt plan. But the key is you also have to look at your spending plan at the same time. So if you're servicing your debt and you look at your debt plan and your spending plan, how much are you paying towards your debt as you list them on your debt plan? So if you're one credit card paying $300 on that one credit card, that's the one you want to eliminate because you want to be able to free up as much cash as you can in order to use one of the others, because you're going to use them in combination. You're not going to just use one, but you do want to be able to knock out as much of what your paycheck is eating up each month so that you can manage your debt better. Yes, ma'am.
But didn't you say one plan, it was focusing more on the interest rates and the other one on the dollar amount or the largest amounts due?
Yeah, when you talk about the avalanche, it focuses on interest rates. And when you talk about the snowball, it focuses on the amount of the debt from the smallest to the largest. But with the hybrid, it looks at everything that's moving on your debt and your spending plan, because if it's like a pie, Peyton. It's like you get $100, right? And you say 25% of my $100 is going towards debt. And when you look at your debt plan, you're saying, well, that 25% is being one credit card, and I got 15 credit cards left. So is it better to pay off the 25% so that you can start to attack the others? Because theoretically speaking, if you're already making minimum payments on the other ones, it's not stopping you from doing that, because you still are servicing debt. You just want to be able to get rid of that one that's eating up the most of your paycheck. Because some people that are carrying debt are carrying 50% debt, and it's combined in 2 or 3 credit cards. And if 50% of my paycheck is going to pay debt, I don't have any joy, because I'm working for the man at that point. Okay? Any other question?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Valinda for being very transparent, talking about her life journey and different things, because I wanted to ask about bankruptcy and your thoughts on it. If someone if you're ever that overwhelmed where you need a fresh start, do you ever, not that it's good, but would you ever recommend it in any circumstance? Or I just want to get your thoughts on bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy is a powerful tool, and I've done corporate America dealing with bankruptcies and personal bankruptcies. And bankruptcy is a powerful tool. It's not for people that just frivolously spend on credit cards, unsecured debt, and they just want to get rid of it because they've spent. But when you're in a situation where you've got a life challenge, it could be medical, it could be a divorce, it could be a number of reasons why you have to file for bankruptcy. And it's not because you've misused your money or you've misused credit. And so in those cases, I would say, yeah, because the thing about bankruptcy is when you file for bankruptcy, creditors look at you differently, not in a negative light, but in a positive light, because they're looking at you and they're saying, you can't file bankruptcy again for another 7 years, which means that they know that you're going to pay any new credit that you get. So oftentimes what happens when people file for bankruptcy, they start getting all of these notifications, hey, this credit card. What I would say is if you file for bankruptcy, be very prudent about what you open as far as new credit, because you don't want to get back in the same situation and then be in that debt cycle again. The other thing about bankruptcy is you don't have to do a total bankruptcy. You can still maintain your house, you can still maintain your car. So when you list those items that are essential for you to still be able to operate, when you go with a bankruptcy attorney, he'll separate those debts that you still need to be responsible for, and then they'll recalculate what you can afford for a monthly payment. Does that make sense?
I was just going to say, just to tag on to what she said about being frivolous about the bankruptcy. I actually had to file a bankruptcy because I went through a divorce, and there were bills that my ex-husband had created that I didn't know about. And after the divorce, then I had all these creditors calling me, and I'm like, I don't have no bills there. But there were bills that were put in my name, and he had them going somewhere else. So it was like, I can't lose my house, and my car. And so I need to manage this. And what she said is right. The creditors, what they did is they looked at, she had 750 credit score, and then all of a sudden it's here. What happened? And so a letter of explanation helped me to get new credit.
Did you have a question?
I didn't have a question. I
just gonna share something. I do feel like taking the hybrid route, even if you focus on one of the other ones, is still, or just kind of reference back to one of the other ones. The hybrid route is always the best because a lot of times, sometimes we are a lot more over our head than we even can see. Sometimes you can get so comfortable in robbing Peter to pay Paul that you don't really realize your actual debt amount. And that was my issue. But being able to do it from a hybrid place, you're able to see, because a lot of times when you get to a rhythm where you know how to maintain monthly, it doesn't mean you have the money, you just know how to maintain.
That's a good point.
The hybrid route is always, I agree with you, the best route because it forces you to look at both sides every month. Because as Veronica is stating, when you're paying things off, every month it should shift. Some people don't do their spending plans because they're like, oh, well, I know what bills I have to pay. But 1 month, you could have had something break down and you've had to shift it. So now the next month, it's like, okay, if you had the money to pay for that, now where is that being shifted to? So I just wanted to kind of just share that the hybrid route is definitely the best when that was introduced to me, because I used to do the budget, I used to do this one on one side, and then I would look at what I was spending on another side, but putting them side by side was a slap in the face at first, but I made it through.
And she raises a very good point. If you're going to not do a spending and a debt plan, you're just wasting your time, because you got to put that thing in your face, like Nicole is saying, every single month, because things change every month. Your life changes every single month. So if you leave that thing just stagnant and it's just there and you never go back to it, you're just really wasting your time, and you might as well just continue to do what you're doing. So let's go to the micro shield. We briefly talked about a micro shield. I clearly understand when we talk about doing a 3 or a 6 month emergency fund, you guys were cringing like, where am I supposed to get this money from when I'm already trying to pay my debts? And you do it $5, $10, $25 at a time. So if you are going to Starbucks every day, that $9 cup of coffee, you can say, okay, I'm not going to buy the $9 cup of coffee. I'm going to go ahead and set it aside for a micro shield. Because while you're paying debt, you don't want to create new debt. So you want to have at least a small micro shield, and then you want to pay things in cash. You don't want to use credit cards going forward until you get your debt down to a manageable level. So are there any questions about a micro debt or a micro shield? Because from here, we're going to go to debt cycle trap. Now here is a reinforcement of why you need a micro shield, because if you have no cash reserves, unexpected expenses will happen, and you're going to have to figure out how to pay for those expenses. And remember, with an emergency fund is designed to take care of those things that are unexpected. So that's why you need an emergency fund. If you don't have an emergency fund, it's going to force you to pull out the credit card and start using the credit card again. And then you start all over from ground zero. It's like you didn't do anything. And so you're starting from ground zero. So as a reinforcement, do $500 to $1,000. That will cover you until you get in a position where most of your debt is taken care of, and then you can build a healthy emergency fund. Any questions or concerns about this? Yes, ma'am.
So with the micro shield, are you saying not to take out any additional credit cards and debt while you're building a micro shield?
No. So you're going to have to go back to your spending plan and determine if you have any fat in there that you can, move over into a micro shield. Because what you don't want to do, that I keep saying, is you don't want to recreate new credit. Because if you do, you'll pay off one and now you have a new one taking its place. It's almost like the last slide we had a week ago where your money is working for you. Credit works the same way. You've got employees that you're hiring to keep your debt up rather than making money off your money.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So, where do you park it? Well, we all know that in a traditional bank, whether it's Chase or whether it's Wells Fargo, they're paying a 0.01% on your money. And so you're losing money because it's not even keeping up with inflation. So your cash is literally staying stagnant. So where do you need to put it? You need to put it in a high yield savings account. These are FDIC insured, like what we talked about, and it's guaranteed. Your money is going to make money. If you use, say, Navy Federal Credit Union, you may get, 2% on your money. If you decide to go with a Vanguard cash account, you may get 3.5%. The online banks are paying close to 4%. And so you really need to put the money that is for your emergency fund in a high yield savings fund. That's going to allow your money to grow while it's literally sitting there. Because remember, with an emergency fund, that's not money you're dipping into to, like Nicole said, robbing Peter to pay Paul, because legally you're not supposed to touch it because it's not something that you're going to use to pay for something that should already be on your spending plan. So back to spending plan for Steve's benefit, everything has to be on the spending plan. Every single thing that you can think of. Then that way you funded everything that you think you want along with your joy plan. So there should be no reason why you should be illegal going into your emergency fund. Okay? So, compounding interest. Does everybody understand what compound interest is? You in the back. Right there. Yes, yes. Can you tell me what compound interest is or what you think it is? Take a stab at it. I gave you some clues. Take a stab at it. Can't hear you.
Compound meaning two things. Can I just read it?
Yeah, you can read it. Yeah.
Compounding is simply the process where your money makes money, and then that new money makes money too. It turns your saving into a snowball that rolls down a hill, getting bigger and faster entirely on its own.
Yes, ma'am. That is what compounding is. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So, the question is, would you rather have $1 million or would you rather have a penny? Be honest, raise your hand. Who wants $1 million? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 people want $1 million. Everybody else wants a penny? You sure you want a penny? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. So, day 1, all you have is a penny. That's it. You only have a penny. Day 10, you got $5.12. Do you wish you would have had the $1 million at this point? Not yet? Okay. Let's go to day 20. Now, at day 20, all you have is $5,200. $242.80. The people that chose $1 million still have $1 million. And you guys have $5,000. Day 30. You got $5 million. And you may say, well, how is that possible? Because what happens is, day 5 of the penny, you actually have 16 cents. Then you double that to 32, to 64, to 128, to 256. So by the time you're at day 10, that's your 512. And then you start doubling from there. So day 11, you got 1024, 2048, 4096, and so forth and so on. So by the time you get to day 30, you've gone from day 21 to 10,485, 20,000. So everything is doubling. That's the beauty of compounding. So what do you think happens on the last day of compounding? 10,737,418.24. Wow. So that's compounding in a nutshell. As long as you're putting your money in and you're giving money to that compound interest, it's going to double. The stock market works the same way. You know, if you put your money in the stock market and you put it in something safe, you're going to get at least 8% on your money. Right now, you might get double digits because Trump is playing with the, you know, every day he's saying something that makes it go crazy and go, you know, double digits. And some days he plays with it and it drops. When it dips, that's when you buy. And then that way you make your money on the rise. So when we talk about compound interest, that's why you want your emergency fund, because you don't really have to do anything. It's going to multiply for you. And as you add money to it, it's going to continue to grow. So compound interest is your friend, not a regular bank, because you're not going to make any money. You're going to look at your bank account and you're going to say, all I made this month is 16 cents. Yeah, because you're getting 0.01%. So you really want to be anywhere between 2, 3, and 4% in order to be able to make your money. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. Oh.
Are there any high yield savings accounts that you recommend?
Why are you always asking me, am I recommending something? What I would do right now, I don't really like big box banks, but right now Vanguard has what's called a boost amount. They boost the amount by, I think, 0.35%. So right now they're paying 3.35% on their high yield interest account. But then they also have what's called a sweep account, and that one's paying close to 3.5%. Then Wells Fargo is also doing a boost, and I think they're paying 3.25%. But you have to have some limits on what you're putting in those accounts. Navy Federal Credit Union periodically offers something to where you can get more than 2% on your money. So there are several of them out there. Online banks, if you're talking online banks, you can do American Express, you can do Chase, and then there's some that aren't really banks. They don't have any brick and mortar, but they're paying close to 4%. And so what I would do is Google or chat and say who's paying the best interest rates, but then research them to make sure that they're not going to be fly-by-night, especially when you're talking about online banks. That's why you want to go with a name like American Express or Chase or one of those others.
Thank you.
What a dollar amount would you recommend if we open up an account with one of them? Like $500, $1,000, or, I mean, do they have requirements for a minimum
It depends on what types of accounts you get. There are accounts like if you went Navy Federal, they're called jumbo accounts, and you do have to have a certain amount of money in the jumbo accounts. But just for a regular high interest account, I would just, even if you have $50 and you put $50 in there every pay period, that's going to grow. So don't think that you have to have all of this money in order to utilize the benefit of compound interest, because it's going to work as long as you're putting money in it. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I think Ms. Pack in the back also. Peyton, can you give the young lady over here?
Hey, Veronica, my question is, this example, how the interest rate compounded, and you gave us the names of some institutions, some banks that offer high yield savings accounts. So, but do you know of any banks that are compounding such as this example?
Well, this is real. It's not fake. This is real, but the only difference is instead of a day, you're talking longevity. So although this is a compact example, this actually happens when you are consistently putting your money in there and leaving it in there. That's the key. But if you're going to put it in a high yield savings account today and want to withdraw it next month, then your money's not going to grow all that much.
Exactly.
And that's why it's telling you by the time you get to a 30-day cycle, even if that's years, then your money is going to double every day you leave it in there, or every month you leave it in there, because generally it's going to be at the end of the month, you know exactly how much interest you've made on your money.
Right. And these accounts are also good for like your emergency funds.
Yes, that's exactly where you should park your emergency fund. Don't leave it in your regular checking account, and don't leave it in a savings account where you're not making any money on it.
Right. I have another quick question. What are your thoughts on just separating some of your money, and just say, for instance, we're going to pay bills out of the Chase account, or we're going to pay bills out of the Navy Federal account. What are your thoughts on that? Should there be just one designated account to pay the bills?
There should be one household account. So if you're married and you guys have your own personal accounts, you should have one account specifically designated for your household budget. All of that money should be there. You guys should be feeding that account. And then I would put a cushion in that account just in case you didn't get your spending plan and your debt plan down where it needed to be. And then I would have other accounts for other things. I would have my emergency fund not tied to the fund that I'm doing my household account, because that will get you to the point of dipping into your emergency fund when you really shouldn't be using it for your regular monthly bills. And so, yes, I would separate my accounts.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys basically answered my question, but I wanted to know if the compound interest was only for savings accounts, or is that is that only in a saving account?
When we're talking about high yield savings, yes, those are savings accounts. You can do a cash money market account like in Vanguard, and they pay close to 3.5%, because I have one of those accounts. So yes, it's generally going to be based on your savings. But there are some other ways that you can make money that we'll talk about a little bit later in the conversation. Any other questions? I'm sorry?
Just a word of encouragement. I'm 59. In my 20s, I thought about compounded or had an interest in some type of account like that. I did not follow through. And when I think about where I could be financially right now, if I had made that decision of $10, $20 a week or month, things would be so different, especially with this example that you just gave. So I just want to encourage the younger generations if you can make that sacrifice now, it will have a major impact on your life and have a peace of mind.
Yes.
Especially because things are going to happen in life, and it would be good to have that nest egg. So make the sacrifice now.
And it's really about the seeds that you're planting now are going to produce later. And it's about allowing that seed to mature. I mean, even if you wanted, the young lady over here asked if there's other ways to do it. Yeah, you can do CDs. You can do short-term CDs and long-term CDs. You know, those are all vehicles that you can use to get additional interest on your money. So, back to this. The penny doesn't explode into millions because of the original cent. It explodes because of the momentum of compounding. So it starts with the principal, it rolls downhill, it picks up the interest, picks up the interest, it picks up the interest, and to your point, Peyton, over time is when you get the large nest egg. Okay? Now, the tale of two pennies. One builds wealth and one builds debt. Same momentum, different master. You have to decide who you want to win. So before we go here, I have a question. How many of you in your console, in your car, you go and you pick up, I don't know, a bag of chips or soda or whatever, and you take the change and you throw it in your center console? How many people do that? I do that. That's why I have so many pennies and quarters. But what happens when you continue to do that? These are all nickels, dimes, pennies, and these are all quarters. What happens if I go ahead and roll that money, take it to the bank, and have my money work for me instead of sitting in my console? So when I talk about you going to a convenience store and you're buying a soda or whatever you're buying, this is money too. Oh, I see Renissa has some. This is money. And if you just leave it in your console, it's oh, Miss P got it back there too. But it's passive. You're not doing anything with it. I mean, I made a whole lot of excuses as to why I have all of this. I said, oh, my granddaughter, I'm gonna, take her to get ice cream or whatever. She moved to Arizona. So I still have this money that I need to do something with. So think about every penny and allowing that penny to work for you. And it will multiply if you put it in the right vehicle. Okay? So when we get here, once you've got your debt plans and your spending plans and joy plans and all that stuff working out, and you're paying down debt, then now it's time for transition. We can't stay stuck in playing with, spending plans and debt plans. We have to do the work to get those debts down so that we can move towards what Valinda talked about, the vacations or whatever it is you want, that vintage car. I mean, you want to spend $50,000 on a car? You have it because you've paid down your debts and now you're moving into a different phase. So what phase am I in? Well, there are three phases. There's the wealth accumulation phase, which I'm assuming most people in the room are in phase one. The second one is wealth preservation and then wealth distribution. So theoretically speaking, what could happen is you're starting out and you're in that phase one, but all of a sudden, you intersect with phase three. Well, how does that happen? Well, you can have a relative, a parent that leaves you an inheritance. So you started out in phase one, it intersects with phase three, and now you're smack dab in the middle of phase two because they've left you enough money to now you have to figure out how to keep that money instead of wasting that money. So it can happen. So let's just give a little bit of detail so that you understand the three phases rather than just reading them on the screen. So when I talk about wealth accumulation, generally most people that work have a certain horizon of years that they're going to work. So if you're on a horizon of 40 years, that may be your wealth accumulation, where you're accumulating wealth. Your salary is increasing every year or every 4 or 5 years. But the key to make sure that you're accumulating wealth is not spending every seed that you make. And so the key with the spending and the debt plans, the reason I send out so many emails about completing it is because once you get your baseline, what I did for years, I said, okay, I can live off $40,000 a year. So as I started increasing my salary, all the extra money went into wealth accumulation. Didn't touch it, didn't have to do anything else because my spending plans and my debt plans and my joy plan included everything I wanted to do, including vacations. Even if it was only taking one vacation a year, all of that stuff was allotted within the $40,000. So as you start to increase your income, if you truly want to build wealth, take the extra income and start to increase where you're putting that money to grow, whether it be a high yield interest account, whether it be a 401k, a Roth, and some of the other vehicles that we're going to talk about. Okay? Everybody understands phases, right? So from here, phase one can be smooth or bumpy. And what do I mean by smooth? Smooth means that you're resting in your spending and your debt plans and things are going smooth. Bumpy is when you get off track and you forget what you're supposed to be doing with your money and you start to spend haphazardly. So it depends on the road you choose as to whether it's going to be smooth or bumpy. So at this phase, for wealth accumulation, you're starting out, you're in the driver's seat, you can decide whatever it is you want to do with your money, and you can make whatever spending decisions you make, and you can either begin it or you can spend like it says. On this path, you can easily hit a pothole. And that is what you don't want to do, because now you're using your credit card. Your credit card is now your main source of getting through the end of the month. Like so many of you have said, now I got to use my credit card because I don't have enough money in the paycheck that I make in order to even cover my bare necessities. So this is where you end up if you are more into immediate gratification rather than waiting until your money is growing. So what your trusty credit card forgot to tell you is that credit cards always have a string attached. And basically, you're going to have to pay the piper with the interest rate that you're paying on that particular credit card. And so now you're sitting at the side of the road waiting for somebody to save you. Most of you will either call a family member, borrow it from a friend, take out a loan, or whatever it is you need to do to get out of the situation that you're in. So planning is your friend. You want to make sure that you've done the appropriate planning, that you're monitoring your spending so that you don't end up here. So we want to be able to turn accumulation into reality. So I want you right there to read what you see here.
The accumulation rule: you cannot preserve or distribute wealth until you successfully build it. The common mistake: waiting until you earn more money to start saving. The strategic goal: find the highest leverage, lowest risk tool to kick start your growth. It says easiest source of wealth available to most employees?
So, do you know what the easiest way for employees to start accumulating wealth? 401k. So let's talk about the 401k. It's free money. There is no other investment that you can make where you'll make 100% on your money. So if your employer is paying 3%, 4%, 5%, and you match that, and you're putting 3%, 4%, or 5% away, you're making 100% on your money. You can do crypto, you could do real estate, but when you first put your money into those vehicles, it's not going to give you 100% return. So if you're leaving this money on the table, you're literally taking a pay cut. Do you understand why I say you're taking a pay cut? Everybody understand that? You're losing money, and it doesn't make any sense to lose money. So you get an instant return. You supercharge the penny effect. So instead of having 1 penny, now you have 2 pennies. And then the last thing you're doing is you're lowering your tax bill. You're lowering your tax bill because it's pre-tax. They're taking the money out before they actually assess your taxes. So it's a win-win situation if you take advantage of it. So what is a Roth IRA? Everybody know what a Roth IRA is? Because I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because I want you to understand that your money can work 2 different ways. So when we talk about a Roth IRA is post-tax money. So this is money that you've already paid tax on. That means that when you put the money in a Roth IRA, now not only the principal that you make, but all of the growth is tax-free as long as you follow the rules. The rules say that you can take money out of a Roth IRA of your principal and not be charged tax if you haven't reached 59 and a half. But by the time you reach 59 and a half, and as long as you've had the Roth account for at least 5 years, anything you take out is tax-free. This is your golden goose right here. So what I would suggest that you do is if your employer offers both pre-tax and post-tax, do both. If you're a younger person and you do a Roth IRA, even if your employer doesn't do it, I would suggest that you do it, because what happens is you're already in a low tax bracket, right? And so if you're in a low tax bracket, you should be able to put some dollars in your Roth, and that money's going to grow exponentially. For older workers, you want to stop at a certain point putting money in a 401k and transition it to a Roth. So you would say, for instance, if you were doing 10% with your employer for the 401k, you may want to reduce it down to whatever they're matching and then put that extra money in a Roth. Because the thing is, by the time you reach 73, they're thinking about changing it to 75, you will have to take required distributions, which means that you're going to be paying taxes on the pre-tax money if you take that out. But if you've got a situation where you are starting to convert those dollars over to a Roth IRA, which you can do, just watch and see which tax bracket you're in, because you can do a conversion of your 401k into a Roth without you ever having to touch the money. The only difference is you're going to have to pay tax on that money. We'll have a class later on to explain those things, because I know it's a complex thing that I'm saying, and I'm trying not to overwhelm you with too many details. But a Roth IRA and an IRA are 2 things that you should be doing as soon as you can. If you have an employer, do a 401k. Open up a Vanguard, a Fidelity, or a Schwab if your employer doesn't also offer a Roth, and start putting money away in a Roth as well. And why is that? Jack's Magic Bean, the power of the Roth. Anybody want to read this? You want me to summarize it? You want to read it? Okay.
Jack's Magic Bean and the power of the Roth IRA. To make the Roth IRA concept more financially grounded and realistic, imagine blending the fairy tale metaphor with concrete principles of investing and tax strategy. First, the seed, after-tax contributions. You invest after-tax dollars, meaning you've already paid income tax on that money. This mirrors planting a seed in fertile soil. The soil represents market opportunity and time horizon. The key principle, delayed gratification. You sacrifice immediate tax deductions for long-term tax freedom. Next, the beanstalk, compounding growth. Your investments grow tax-free through compounding interest and market appreciation. Each leaf and branch symbolizes diversification, stocks, bonds, ETFs, spreading risk while maximizing growth. The beanstalk's steady upward climb reflects time in the market, not timing the market. Finally, the golden harvest, tax-free withdrawals. At retirement, you harvest tax-free returns, the golden eggs. This represents financial independence and strategic tax planning. Withdrawals don't increase your taxable income, preserving benefits like Social Security and Medicare thresholds. The harvest is sustainable. You can keep picking golden eggs without cutting down the tree.
So does everybody understand the concept? This allows you to continually use that money for your own benefit without having to worry about it affecting your Social Security and Medicare. Because the way things work with a regular IRA is when you take that money out that hasn't been taxed, now it's part of your normal income, which means that if you exceed the thresholds that they've said for both Medicare and Social Security, they reduce your benefits because you've got all of this extra income coming in. So that's why you want to start converting your money. If you've got a 10-year horizon, a 15-year horizon, when you're in that lowest tax bracket, you want to start converting those dollars into a Roth account so that you have more in a Roth account than you have in a IRA account. So by the time you're ready to take those required distributions, you're not getting hit with the taxes on it. And in fact, if you've got enough in your Roth IRA, don't even touch the 401k, pull it out of the Roth IRA, and then let your account be inherited by whomever you're going to leave it to. That's really the way to do it. Then hopefully they're in a lowest enough tax bracket, but they have a 10-year window to be able to draw down all of those funds that would be in that 401k. Okay? Any questions? We're almost there. A seed must be planted and watered. If you dig up the seed before it's time, you will stunt its growth. But if you allow the seed time, it will produce a strong root system that has the capacity to produce and sustain a harvest. So from here, we're going to go back to Marcus, and hopefully Marcus is in a good mood for me. And we're going to try to do one more scenario. You guys open for that? Okay, I'm going to start the voting. about 90 seconds left. I'm doing good on time. Coming up on 60 seconds. Very many have voted. 8 votes thus far. There we go. Come on. We're at 40 seconds. If you haven't voted online, go ahead and vote. Vote's going to close in about 30 seconds. Okay, wrap it up. Okay, Marcus. One second. Let Marcus wrap it up. And then
The group overwhelmingly chose option A to use public transit and rideshare, with 92% in favor, leaving just 8% willing to miss a car payment. Practically speaking, that means most participants are opting to avoid the financial hit and credit damage linked to missing a payment by changing how they get around. Missing a car payment isn't just a missed bill, it's a stealth tax that can tack on hundreds, even thousands, in interest and lost credit opportunities down the road. Remember, Proverbs talks about the wisdom of steady hands and careful planning. So here's a question to carry forward. How might you adjust your daily choices to protect your credit and keep your financial footing firm?
okay, so
The
you had
group overwhelmingly chose.
so you had a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The group overwhelmingly chose option A, using public transit and rideshare, with 92% in favor, while 8%
Marcus,
would rather miss a
but-
car payment. Practically, this means most people are opting to avoid the financial hit and credit damage that comes with missing payments. With average debt over $12,000 and credit scores just under 700, maintaining good payment habits is crucial. Missing a car payment isn't just losing a few dollars. It's like throwing your credit score off a cliff, making it harder to borrow when you really need to. Proverbs reminds us to owe no one anything except love. Here, that means honoring our debts to keep freedom. So, ask.
Okay, Marcus. All right. What was your question?
For the high-end savings, do you recommend, sorry, I'm back to that. For the high-end savings, do you recommend putting like a base amount and then adding weekly or monthly? Or putting like a large sum and letting that accumulate?
It depends on what your situation is, because if you can put, a couple of $100s in there, but then still continually put money into it, that's going to be the key. But your current debt load is going to be where you can make that decision. So if you need to service debt and you really don't have $2,000 or $3,000 to put into the high yield savings account, you want to scale down your debt, but still put something in based on how you're getting paid.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so from here, we're just going to, since Marcus repeats everything, we're not going to do any more of those. We're going to go into this one. We're going to go into the teaching moment. Look at the question, and we're going to talk about that.
Just as the potter's vessel became flawed.
Okay. All right. So basically, with the teaching moment, we want to talk about the potter's wheel. And so in the Bible, it talks about, the potter and the clay, and how he takes that clay and he forms that clay. And it could be marred, it could be scraped, but he doesn't destroy the clay in his hand. He keeps it in his hand. And so one of the things that we have to remember is it doesn't really matter what bad missteps we may have done or anything like that. It's really about allowing the process to work so that we can move beyond the marred and the scraped missteps that we may have made into the future that we want to be in. So don't get discouraged in your journey. Stay with it. Allow the process to work so that you can meet the goals and objectives that you want to meet in your financial journey. Now, when we move into next week, we've got 2 weeks left because my sister and I are going on a mission trip. So next week, we'll talk about some investment vehicles, whether it be index funds with the stock market, EFTs, things of that nature. I'll talk about, is it a good idea to buy insurance or not? What sort of companies I would suggest that you do insurance, because we need to be real about insurance. Real insurance is not life insurance, it's death insurance. So it's really about what you're leaving, your legacy, when you're talking about insurance. So we're going to talk about when is it good to buy insurance and when is it not. We're also going to talk about just kind of reinforcing some of the things that you've learned over the last few weeks. Lastly, we'll probably do a panel on the very last one so that we can get questions and answers from you, because our hope is that we're able to do some workshops even after this is over, and we'll do them at different levels. Now, I will say there will be a fee associated with the workshops. I did this because this is what I want to do. I wanted you guys to have the basics, but when we start talking about more complex things, we really have to put some skin in the game for those sorts of things. Is that fair? Okay. So, Nicole, would you come up and do the closing prayer? We got 6 minutes.
Let's look unto the Lord. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we come humble right now, just saying once again, thank you. I thank you, Lord, for the wisdom and the knowledge that you've given our dear sister. I thank you that every seed was planted on good soil tonight. I thank you that even as we are willing to see our numbers, as we're willing to see our reality, face ourselves, I thank you that wisdom, the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of knowledge, and the spirit of understanding is our portion. I ask that even on tonight, that we're able to sit and we're able to chew on everything that we've been learning in this month. I thank you that learning is easy for us because of our yes and our surrender to you. I plead the blood of Jesus over every person that is under the sound of my voice right now, because the blood still works. I thank you for allowing our minds to be kingdom. I thank you for just aligning us up in heaven's steps. We love you, we trust you, and we believe you. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.
Thank you for coming out. I really appreciate it. If you've got questions, like I said, save your questions and then we can discuss them next week. You can also email me at workshop@lrmoneymentor.com if you've got a specific question that you don't want to bring to the group.